While fantasizing about their brushing session, they get caught by Tsukihi in the middle of it. She finds it weird that they are pushing each other, while Karen is wearing her own clothes and lying down on the bed. The story begins with Araragi finding himself shackled in a rundown classroom, and he realizes that he might have been kidnapped. Soon after, the girl who kidnapped him comes to see if he is still alive, and Araragi recognizes her to be Senjogahara. She refuses to open his shackles and proceeds to finish the drink she brought for him as he keeps staring at her like a fool. When he is unable to accept the fact that he will have to stay thirsty, she holds her hand forward asking him to lick the drop of water on her finger. As he asks for food, she leaves a piece of rice ball in front of him, and he takes it whole in one gulp as he is hungry. She promises to make him food the next day, and when Araragi is worried about using the bathroom, she insists that she will have to change his diaper in order to protect him. Before all this, Senjogahara was tutoring Araragi on the weekdays, but on one of the weekdays, she suddenly called him saying that she could not come for some reason. As he goes outside, he meets his younger sibling who tells him that their elder sister Karen is out of the house for the time being as she cannot be found. When Araragi calls Sengoku, she asks him to get to her house, and Araragi decides to call in his younger sister for the trip. But she decides to say no, saying that Sengoku is in love with Araragi, but he is rather dumb not to take it that way. On his way to Sengoku's house, calmly Araragi reminds himself not to get into a real fight with his sisters, all while knowing that they might end up dead since he got turned into a vampire after all. In the middle of the road, he notices Hachikuji, an elementary school brat, and decides to violate her by doing various things to her. As they have a conversation, Hachikuji suggests that he should keep the information of his being a vampire secret from his family. They have a good time together, sharing each other's problems, and bid a nice farewell at the end of the time. When Araragi reaches Sengoku's home, he is surprised to see a rather different demeanor than usual because of her bangs. Sengoku shyly invites him to her house, and it seems that her parents are working even on the weekend, so she is basically alone. After closing down everything, she asks him to sit on the bed and starts taking off her clothes, only to ask him to do the same with his hoodie. While playing some inconvenient games with Sengoku, Araragi asks her if something odd has happened lately which spooks her out. After thinking about it for a while, she explains that Rara and her sister are up to something. They seem to be investigating the source of the charm going around in middle school, assuming that someone is intentionally spreading that. When Sengoku's mother suddenly gets home, she gets nervous knowing that she didn't let anyone know that Araragi was coming over. Araragi gets out and calls Kanbaru to clean her house for the day, and she keeps blabbering about how her grandmother saw her naked in the room and passed without saying anything. While riding a bicycle to Kanbaru's house, he notices Karen doing handstands in public, which almost gets him into an accident. After getting a phone call, Karen suddenly leaves and Araragi finds Kanbaru naked in a pile of books she was arranging. After acting like a damsel in distress, she locks the door, insisting that she will have to dress up. Kanbaru bickers for a while with her boatload of erotic stories and finally wears the jersey mementos she received from her basketball team. When Araragi gets her nervous calling himself a bigger pervert, he gets his clothes stripped off and butt slapped by her almost instantly. Kanbaru then unfolds how Araragi and Senjogahara might make a great couple, but there is a chance he could get married to Hankawa. Then he could have a full-blown harem with Kanbaru, Sengoku, and Hachikuji, which eventually makes him get cold sweat. Jokes apart, Kanbaru claims that he should be careful of girls taking advantage of his kindness and suggests not to betray Senjogahara. After playing card games with her for a while, Araragi leaves her house and notices a man standing in the darkness on the other side. As he looks in the man's direction, he introduces himself as Kaiki, and he seems to be looking for Kanbaru one way or another, but decides to be vague. The man leaves abruptly, saying that he is wasting his time, and Araragi feels like he has some similarities to Ashino, who looks quite like him. Even though Araragi wanted to follow him, he decided not to do so, assuming that the guy must be full of bad news, more like a threat. When Araragi finds Senjogahara in the middle of the road, he follows her like a Mumin rider in the streets, and she decides to punish him by holding his hair for playing with 6 different girls the same day. She threatens him by pushing her hand in his mouth, saying that she will surely kill him if it ever gets serious with even one of them. It seems that elaborating her about Kaiki is the only thing that led him here, in the abandoned classroom and chained. After haggling with Senjogahara for a while, she reveals that Kaiki is the reason why her entire family, and she ended up suffering vastly, financially and mentally. When he suddenly gets his phone out with Senjogahara's help, the message of his younger sister pops up as she is asking for help. He breaks out of his shackles and decides to leave to reach his house. Suddenly, Senjogahara gets called by Hankawa and starts reacting weirdly, which gets Araragi even more nervous. When Araragi gets back home and sits with both his little sisters, he feels like Karen is trying to avoid telling the truth and thinks of punishing him by using his physical strength. But Hankawa comes in the middle and asks for an explanation, making him apologize to Karen eventually. Realizing that he is not about to get a concrete answer from Tsukihi or Karen, he moves in with Hankawa in his room to find out what is actually happening. It seems that the matter is related to finding out the source of the charm that is circulating among middle school kids for some reason. Hankawa is surprised to know that Araragi knows about this matter already, and Araragi doesn't know that Sengoku isn't the only one who has been affected by the charm in the first place. Even Hankawa thinks that someone is intentionally spreading the charm, which creates a more problematic situation for Araragi. Hankawa reveals that Karen went to talk to whoever was behind the charm, and that person did something to her. Hankawa couldn't manage to see the culprit behind it because she was busy with something else at hand. Just after hearing that the person behind the whole situation has been Kaiki, something inside Araragi just goes off. As he is daydreaming in his bath, Shinobu gets summoned out of nowhere and appears all naked in front of Araragi. Shinobu gets him out of his handcuffs and then devours them one by one, adding that she just does what she wants. While shampooing Shinobu's hair, both of them talk about the past and the reasons why none of them can forgive each other. According to her, a flame wreath bee is affecting Karen this whole time. According to Shinobu, this type of disease existed back in the 15th century, and the victims died with their bodies wreathed with flames. As Araragi thinks of the situation at hand, he realizes he can't even guess that Karen has been suffering the whole time because of her strong demeanor while having a high fever. Shinobu reveals that Kaiki must be an oddity himself in the first place, raising suspicion that he must not even be a human. Araragi thinks of asking Senjogahara about it, and Shinobu gets in her regular demeanor, threatening our guy to give her a pile of donuts. But Tsukihi manages to see both Shinobu and Araragi in the bath together, and comes back with a knife later on. While talking about vampirism in the bath, Araragi gets a flashback of the time when Shinobu told him the truth about being a vampire. Even though there is a choice to keep on living by executing her, Araragi chooses not to, and they reconcile once again in a simple manner. After taking a bath, Araragi wastes his time bickering with his younger sister as she acts like he must be the silliest man on earth dying of loneliness. After some time, Hankawa comes down to silence Araragi, but he manages to take his towel off to make it even weirder. They get into the moments where Karen manages to face Kaiki in his place, and it seems that he has been taking money to use charm on people without caring about the consequences. Karen got to know that everything he has been doing is for money, and Kaiki realized Karen just came to him to formulate justice on her end. When it came to putting an end to his work, Kaiki asked for a total of 3 million, as he managed to spend over 2 months to set it up. Slowly, he walked up to Karen and attached the cursed bee to her forehead, leaving her suffering on the ground from there, saying that the only way to get relieved was by bringing 10 million to him. When it is over, Hankawa gets ready to leave for her house, and she gives Araragi a ticket that will entitle him to touch her breasts whenever he wants. But knowing that she will end up hating him, Araragi rips it apart instantly. Araragi ends up revealing to her that he made up with Shinobu, and he leaves his bike with her knowing that she will need it all the way. When Araragi goes on to take care of his little sister, she reveals everything that has been happening around Kaiki and the middle schoolers. After talking to Karen, Araragi realizes something. He asks Shinobu if Karen's sickness can be transferred to him. Even though it is possible, Shinobu doesn't recommend him to go through it. As the conversation ends, Araragi gets the idea of kissing his sister. He thinks it will be able to alleviate her pain or so, at least that is what he thinks. Araragi couldn't take away her sickness, but Karen's fever came down a little bit more than before. Outside his house, he meets Hachikuji, and she notices that Araragi is more serious than ever, meaning something must have happened. They part ways as Araragi reaches Senjogahara's house, knowing that Senjogahara will be annoyed to know that he mingled with Hachikuji one way or another. When he gets into Senjogahara's house, she seems to be planning for some kind of accidental murder for whatever reason. It seems that she is planning to have a chat with Kaiki herself, knowing that Araragi wouldn't accept her protection in any way. Once Araragi asks her how she will manage to find him, she claims that she still has the business card left by him. But when Araragi asks if he can come along, Senjogahara threatens him but decides to listen to what he has to say. Realizing that his sister is connected, Senjogahara couldn't avoid engaging him in it, and she couldn't forgive Kaiki for the divorce of her parents. Senjogahara reveals she wasn't looking into Kaiki because she likes him, but she wants to see to the end of Kaiki as he destroyed her family. When Araragi reveals his feelings in front of Senjogahara, she accepts his request to go along with her, but on one condition. Even so, she couldn't reveal the condition to Araragi for obvious reasons, with the promise of protecting each other. As Araragi is about to leave, Senjogahara asks him to get some sleep, assuming that he might not be able to sleep if they went to deal with Kaiki in the evening. As soon as he reaches home, Tsukihi claims that Karen is gone and Araragi instantly goes out to look for her. While contemplating, he meets Shinobu and she begins tracking her, only when she is able to force Araragi to order her as her master. After running for a while, he meets Karen on the way, lying down on the ground. When Araragi asks her to go back home, instead of listening to him, she gets into a fighting stance, asking him to fight her for real. As Araragi gets beaten down on the concrete and floor almost constantly, Shinobu awakens asking if he needs some help in this moment. But Araragi rejects her idea, claiming that he will give her some good head pats when it is over. When Shinobu reveals what she wants, Araragi fires up, and even though he tries to dodge her attack, he ends up bloodying his body even more. After causing destruction through half of the city, they momentarily argue for quite some time while pulling through the topic of incest, which brings an end to Karen's ego. Araragi and Senjogahara both meet Kaiki, and he seems to remember Araragi from the first time they met in front of his friend's house. Instead of arguing back, Kaiki promises that he will make amends for what he has done, and even apologizes to both Araragi and Senjogahara. He claims that Karen will be fine after some days and promises to pay back all the money lost by Senjogahara's family. But she is unable to believe even a bit of his words and orders him to leave the town as soon as possible. Before leaving, Kaiki reveals that Senjogahara has a crush on him and makes the situation messier than ever for Araragi to understand. After cruising into prideful emotions together, Senjogahara asks Araragi to be gentle with her for the night, easy to guess what happened after. Soon after, Karen gets better as if she is in her previous self, and both of them are still energized to fix what has been ruined by Kaiki himself. The next time, Araragi sees his sister Karen wearing a skirt and girlish clothing, things that he couldn't even imagine seeing in his whole life. Araragi imagines if someone is bullying her or something like that, and even guesses that she must be doing some kind of cosplay. But Karen simply mentions that she is in love, nothing else is wrong with her. Just after mentioning that the skirt is cute, Karen manages to crush 1 or 2 ribs in happiness while hugging him. Just when Araragi mentions Kanbaru, she begs him to be introduced to her, and even adds that he can have her virginity if that is what he needs. Only to be kicked in the face by Araragi, who couldn't hold in the shame and warns her not to act like she is doing right now outside. While fantasizing about their brushing session, they get caught by Tsukihi in the middle of it. She finds it weird that they are pushing each other, while Karen is wearing her own clothes and lying down on the bed. Just as Tsukihi leaves to get all from the convenience store, Araragi finds out that Karen has won the battle, and he has to introduce her to Kanbaru. But instead of caring about anything else, they end up getting on the bed with their previous ritual once again. Araragi calls Kanbaru to make her meet with Karen, but she begs him not to make something like this happen as she was not serious the previous time. But it seems more like a shallow act of drama from Kanbaru as she was busy thinking something perverted. On the way, Karen makes a bet of winning against Araragi in a game of rock, paper, scissors, but she kind of cheats through it. Angered, Araragi flips the game on her and asks her to give him a piggyback ride the whole road. After a bunch of dramatic accusations, Karen begins to carry Araragi on her back, and a woman comes out of nowhere calling them out for some reason. She claims that she has been looking for a place called IQ Cram School and introduces herself as Keichnui Yazuru. Araragi decides to call Hankawa for the information, and she explains that IQ Cram School is the abandoned school where Oshino and Shinobu were living previously. After learning the information from Araragi, she leaves saying that she has to set up a base of operations there, and informs someone else will ask him the same question she did to him. After introducing Kanbaru to Karen, Araragi leaves only to find Hachikuji on the way. Just when he is about to irritate her with his corny self, Shinobu comes in the middle and makes him fall flat on the ground. While he is chatting with Hachikuji, the girl mentioned by Keijanui Yazuru comes in asking for the school's location. She introduces herself as Ananoki Yatsugi and leaves after getting the location from Araragi. Araragi finds an unfamiliar match with both the woman and the kid, but he doesn't know how. In the morning, after a weird physical interaction session with Tsukihi, Araragi leaves his house with Shinobu to get some donuts for her on sale. After some time, she asks Araragi to look back, and he notices Kaiki behind him, resulting in spilling his coffee. It seems that Kaiki is in town for a minor business, and he seems to know about Keijanui Yazuru and Ananoki Yatsugi. According to him, they are real Ghostbusters, unlike him, and they specialize in immortal beings, which becomes a concern to Araragi. Instead of attacking Araragi and Shinobu, the duo attacks Tsukihi and Araragi loses his shit because of that. He goes on to attack Ananoki, but Keijanui makes him crawl under her feet and explains that Tsukihi has been possessed by some kind of rare bird this whole time. After hearing that his sister had been an imposter the whole time, Araragi couldn't believe his ears, and he felt like losing consciousness. After some time, Karen feels suspicious seeing the wrecked up demeanor of the house, but Araragi manages to lie to her and calm her down. Before climbing the stairs, he makes sure that Karen will be supporting her no matter what is about to happen next. After waking up Tsukihi with a kiss, he gets welcomed by a heavy kick and falls down on the ground. As Araragi leaves his house to meet the duo, Shinobu decides to help him with the task at hand, and both of them reach the spot where the duo is hiding. When Ananoki leaves to fight with Shinobu, Araragi is left alone with Keijanui. After questioning Keijanui about Oshino for a while, Araragi realizes that Keijanui, Kaiki, and Oshino, all of them went to college together. Keijanui reveals that Kaiki is the one who revealed that Tsukihi is possessed, and he is angered by the acts of Kaiki once again. He rushes into his opponent, but Keijanui manages to crush his hands at the right time. While crushing his skull with her fists and feet, she tries to reason with Araragi. After throwing him onto the top floor, Keijanui reaches her hand through his chest to hold his heart and crushes it. To see how Ananoki has been doing, Keijanui crashes with Araragi to the lowest floor and sees that Ananoki has already lost. After seeing how Araragi isn't ready to lose even after getting smashed like potatoes, Keijanui realizes she made a mistake and leaves carrying Ananoki. Reaching back home, Araragi promises Tsukihi that he will allow his girlfriend to meet them once the break is over. Knowing that he has been involved too much, he leaves, and the anime finally ends.